Couple things before questions. We're about 2 weeks into practice. Guys have been really, really good in terms of attitudes and spirit. Obviously, we haven't played anyone else yet, but we're focusing quite a bit on trying to take the next step as a team in terms of the way that we approach the game from a mental standpoint. We're spending a lot of time working with these guys individually and as a group culturally on who we want to be. And the exciting thing is our guys have made a lot of strides over the summer, over the early fall, but now coming up here in the next 3-4 weeks, we'll get a chance to test that, when it really matters. So really pleased with where the guys are right now, but obviously we still got a long way to go.
Who would you say has made the most strides in this offseason?
Kerwin Roach had a really, really good summer. He was terrific all summer long. He really demonstrated a level of maturity that was, I think, the result of some humility that he gained from last season. And, I tell the guys all the time, the combination of humility and confidence is a really good thing, when you have that. And he's had that for the majority of the offseason. Now we're just trying to, as it gets into the real games and all the other things come into play, all the drama that surrounds games, we're trying to keep him focused on, number one, the fact that he could be as good of a defender as he wants to be and an unbelievable difference maker on that end for us. And then number two, just providing a level of athleticism and energy on every play for our team. But he's been really good. Eric Davis, knock on wood, he's led us in scoring for the first 2 weeks in practice. If you just look at our box score. I want to open up a practice in the next week or two to you guys if you guys want to come in. We obviously got the event on Wednesday, but if you guys want to come to a practice, we'll get with Scott and get a date that makes sense. But he's been really good. Again, had a humbling sophomore year. And, you're talking about two guys, and I don't think they mind me saying this, that went into last year maybe hoping that was going to be their last year in college. Well, here they are as juniors, and they're much further along in terms of the experiences that they've had and I think what they've learned. But again, as I said with Kerwin, with Eric, it's a matter of carrying that over to game action on the court.
Jim, go ahead. Shaka, you open up, you were talking about the team culturally, who you want it to be. What do you mean by that? What culture do you want this program to do?
Well, we, for the first time ever, I decided that we needed to fully document our culture. So when our guys got back for summer school, I gave them a document called a cultural doc. And our culture doc is basically a description of who we want to be, what we want to move towards. I don't know if it's something that you ever fully attain because you're never perfect, but it's what we want to strive towards. It includes our mission, our core values. Each of our core values has 7 principles underneath of it that kind of lead into who we want to be. And we've spent a lot of time starting in the off-season, when the off-season began in the spring, then in the summer, and continuing this fall, talking as a team and communicating about the contents of that document. It's so dense that you can only do a small amount at once. But the guys have done a pretty good job taking it in and learning it and communicating about it. Again, now it's all about being able to carry it over when all that other stuff is going on in the game and when the bright lights are on.
Brian, go ahead. Shaka, do you think that Matt is now that you've had more time with him, more practice, is he every bit the dynamic leader at point that you had hoped?
He's going to be. He's, like any freshman, he's a work in progress, but he's definitely affected our team in a positive way from the standpoint of sharing the ball, getting us into offense, just doing some of the little things that point guards do. But he's also had some challenges, over the summer and early fall with older guys on our team making life tough on him in practice or in workouts. those guys are physically stronger than him. So it's been a physical adjustment for him. I think the volume of work and demands on his body has been an adjustment for him. But just from the standpoint of sharing the basketball, getting us into offense, getting guys the ball where they need it, he's definitely been what we wanted. Now, is he, a finished version of what we know he will be? No, but he's definitely made some great strides.
In terms of both the culture installation or formation and also just the execution aspect, X's and O's, are you guys, would you say you're on schedule? I mean, that might be two different answers with two different topics, but are they about where you expected them to be in both those areas?
You said the culture, and then what was the other one?
Like the execution, X's and O's type thing.
Some things are on schedule, some things are, you feel like you're a little behind on. I actually have a schedule written out for our at least our discussions and our communication about different elements of our culture, Doc. And as a coach, you'd love to do it every day. You'd love to sit down for an hour and break it down, but you don't want to oversaturate the guy. So and it takes, again, it's stuff that it takes a level of maturity to think through and put into place. So you have to, talk about something as a group, follow up with individual guys, make sure you praise positive examples. So I think our guys have made a lot of progress with that. So in answer to your question, I think, I don't know if there's an exact schedule, but I think they've done a great job on that front. But again, it's about carrying it over. We talked about that the other day in the locker room. I played for these guys, another coach talking in a podcast, and he said, in October, everyone's got great chemistry. Everyone's culture is pretty good in October. It's about, when the bullets start firing or start flying. In terms of basketball, X's and O's, guys have done a really good job through the first 2 weeks. We're a little bit ahead of where we normally would have been just because we had the stuff over the summer with the practices and the games in Australia. But then again, as a coach, you always want to get these other things done. You want to move up to speed on certain things. We have a defensive and an offensive implementation color-coded sheet, and so if you haven't even talked about it at all, it's red, and if you've mastered it, it's blue, and there's 3 colors in between those, and so there's not too much that's blue, at this time of the year, but you want to work obviously close to that. And you understand that when the first game begins, you're not going to be a finished product then. You want to win the game, and then you want to grow and move forward.
Anthony in the back, please.
Coach, what makes Wednesday night so unique and special, and what kind of impression do you want the guys, fans?
It's exciting for our guys and our team, just in that this is the first, I guess, in the United States, if you don't count the Australia games, but this is the first public opportunity for people to see our team. We've been practicing, we've been working in the weight room and doing all the things that the guys do on their own. But this is the first time for them together to say, hey, here's our team. This is Texas's team for the 2017-18 year. Obviously, we're gonna, no matter what happens on Wednesday, no matter how different guys play, the emphasis is going to be on growth and improvement and getting better. And we're playing against each other. We had a scrimmage last week, and, I'm watching the tape, and, man, that defensive rotation isn't where it needed to be. But then you got a guy from Texas scoring on that play. So anytime you see something good, there's probably something not so good on the other side and vice versa. But, again, our guys' spirit, has been really, really good. I'm excited and interested to see, once we get out there in front of fans, how everything evolves. And then after Wednesday, we've got a couple of close scrimmages against good teams. We're looking forward to testing ourselves.
Kirk, go ahead, please.
You talking about red and blue. You don't have the same binders Tom Herman does, do you? You have different color binders.
Yeah, no, I mean, these are just something we've been doing for a while, our implementation sheets. But it's easy. I'm a visual guy, so it's easy to look at and say, if this is red, we better work on it.
On a serious note, what is your starting lineup for Wednesday? And who do you think's going to be your offensive spark off the bench this year?
Well, on Wednesday we're gonna split the teams up, so we'll have
For the regular season, then what do you?
for the regular season.
Yeah.
It remains to be seen. You know, we've got about 3.5 weeks until we play, so a lot of things can happen. You know, knock on wood. Hopefully we stay healthy. That's huge with every team, but you know that is really big this year for us. We started the same 5 guys in Australia. I can tell you that. It was Matt Coleman, Andrew Jones, Kerwin Roach, Dylan Osatowski, and Mo Bamba. And we started those games really well. Even the 2 games we lost, we got off to really good starts. So, you know, there's a good chance that would be our starting lineup, but I don't want to say for sure because you certainly have some competition going on at every position. And I would say particularly at our guard spots, you know, there's probably less separation than there is. I mean, Dylan and Mo, those guys are as good as anyone on our team, if not better, in terms of offensive engines. It starts with those guys, particularly, you know, Dylan's just so good at creating plays for other guys. I doubt he'll lead us in scoring, but he definitely will make a lot of plays and score the ball quite a bit as well. So, you know, those 2 guys have probably been all around offensively the 2 best players.
And off the bench?
Off the bench, well, we brought Eric off the bench in Australia, and like I said, he's led us in scoring in these first 2 weeks of practice. Now, that probably means he wants to start. You know, in some years, we haven't done this year, but in some years I give the guys a questionnaire, and one of the questions on there is, are you a starter? And it's just a way to kind of get a sense for, like, where your guys are and how many minutes they think they're going to play. And you know if you got 10 guys that say that they're a starter, that you got some work to do on chemistry and roles. But Eric has been really, really good with buying into what we've asked him to do. You know, 4 times around the Irwin Center is a little over a mile. So we call it the Irwin Mile. And I told him in the spring, I said, you can't practice. You cannot start practice in September until you run a 5:20. And it's a little harder than running on a track because there's some inclines and then declines. And then, like I said, it's a little bit over a mile. So it's a pretty good time. When he first started doing it, he would text me the times, and he'd be over 6 minutes. And we got back from Australia, and he did it a couple times, and he was close, but he hadn't gotten below what I wanted him to get below. And about Coach Kipe, about a week before practice started, he ran in a 5:18, and that it's a little thing, but it's just an indication of him having a willingness to get outside of his comfort zone and do what we've asked. So he could really give us a spark off the bench if he does come off the bench. Jericho Sims is a freshman who his best basketball is way ahead of him, but he has some athleticism and some physical gifts that is just uncommon. And you know, I think he's a guy that definitely will give us a big spark as well.
Shaka, you haven't been through a year like last year as a head coach. What was maybe the biggest lesson you took just personally from last year?
Took a lot of lessons from it, and you know, I keep a journal that I've been doing ever since I started playing college basketball, and I look back a lot at what I wrote last year, and you know what I wrote in previous years. But I think when you're going through a challenging time, the number one thing, I've said this before, is to focus on the guys that you're coaching. It's very easy to focus inward, but as a team, and certainly as coaches, we have to set the example to understand that there's a growth and development process that we want to happen with these guys, regardless of the last result. And that last result is a huge deal in terms of wanting to win and, you know, people's reactions and all that. But either way, we need to grow and develop these guys at the ages of 18, 19, whatever age they are. So that's the biggest thing that was kind of cemented in my mind. I think when you're going through a great season, and we've been fortunate, over the years just to be a part of some really good teams, it's easy to take for granted just the good feeling that comes as a result of winning. And, I used to say this every year on Selection Sunday because we were fortunate we went 6 years in a row. I used to say to our staff and our guys, don't take this for granted. Like, some of the players, I know you've been every year, but don't feel like this is just a given. And, last year, obviously we were, far from being an NCAA tournament team, and just that feeling of just the difference between going and not going and being a part of it, it gives you a real sense of urgency. I think there's an understanding that, at Texas, there's some unbelievable things that come from being a student athlete here, from being a coach here. This is such a great place to be, to go to school. But you have to want, all the things that you're going after on the court more than the guy you're going up against. And that's whether you're at Texas or wherever you are. And, I think that's one thing that's exciting for me going into this next year is coming off of last year. We certainly don't want to dwell on it, but we want to learn a lot from it.
Brian, up front, please.
Shaka, I don't know how much you've seen, but the marketing department, everything that they've sent out for season tickets features Mo. His face, his smiling face, his arms, and all that stuff. And it's rare for a freshman to be pushed that hard, right? As kind of the face of the program already. Is he already worthy of that? And are you fine with us sort of already labeling that as the face of Texas basketball?
Well, to be honest, a lot of that's up to him because he's good enough, talent-wise, to be that. He's a good enough kid to be that. But there's a lot of responsibilities and a lot of obligations that come with that. And just understanding that it's a team game and understanding that I understand the way things work is everyone wants to simplify and say this person's the leader or this person's the face. But everyone on our team has a very, very valuable role, and at minimum, 5 guys at a time, are contributing in a huge way to anything that's going on the court. But, as you mentioned, sometimes it's, hey, this guy or that guy. We've actually tried to make sure that we spread some of that around. Maybe we haven't done a very good job, Scott, but you'll see some stuff with Eric Davis and Kerwin Roach. You'll see Dylan Osikowski. He always reminds me you got to pronounce the K. You'll see, yes, he's very particular about that, which I would be too. You'll see Andrew Jones. You'll see all of our guys, James Banks. But Mo is a unique player, and he has the ability to impact a team in some very, very powerful ways. And he also has the ability to impact people watching the game in powerful ways. He has to make the choice on a regular, daily basis to do that.
Joe, up front, please.
Coming back from Australia, what was the biggest thing on court that you needed to see fixed, and how have they done since that time?
Well, good question. There's a lot of stuff. I mean, we came back and we broke down all of our possessions offensively, all of our possessions defensively. The biggest things that we wanted to do coming out of Australia is, again, because the implementation of our culture is so important, look at aspects of the game when we broke down in terms of things that we wanted to do approach-wise, mindset-wise, culturally, and then that goes into X's and O's. For instance, the mindset you have going into an offensive possession might go into how well you execute a play. So I can tell you some X's and O's stuff. Obviously, I'd say certainly we want to do better with playing through those big guys. The best job that we did in terms of sharing the ball was when really Dylan got the ball and created plays and found other guys. So I think when we did that well in Australia, we played well. When we didn't play as well. defensively, I mean, those teams were really good. I'm saying on offense they were good. So defensively for us, they expose some things. You know, they just move the ball and they pick on matchups. Fouls, I would say, get a guard without fouling. They really – and the refs were Australian too. So, but, I mean, every game we got off to really good starts, 7-0, 9-2, 12-3, and then it was like boom, 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 fouls. And then they were in the bonus. And we've got to be more disciplined and defend without fouling, particularly guys that are key guys that you need in the game. Because I think Mo only played like 19 minutes a game over there because in a couple of the games he was over there sitting by us.
Andrew in the back, please. So it's Dylan Osetkowski.
Mm-hmm.
Last year at this time, you know, he had a good wonder-white scrimmage. And I think it was after that you said, you know, he has the potential to be maybe the best player on this roster, one of the better players. That adding to that mystery of a guy that's not playing this year, but could be a big playmaker. How does he buy in or feed into being like the guy? Is he one of those players?
Well, working with him on building his confidence, he has a mantra that I've asked him to say 10 times a day, looking in the mirror. And we just want him to stick his chest out and feel like he's as good or better than anyone on the court. Now, you guys know when a guy sits out, it's easy to kind of build that kind of up, say, hey, you know, he's really, really good. And, you know, when he gets eligible. And last year was tough on him. It was hard. You know, it's hard for any transfer when you have to sit out and the reality hits. You can't travel with the team. Home games, you know, you're there on the bench, but you can't get out there and help those guys in the game. So now he gets to play. We're super excited about him. And, you know, he's been a lot of fun to coach. He's developed in a lot of ways. But now, you know, we finally get to go do it. So, yeah, we think he can have a really, really good season. I saw we always send him things for motivation because not a lot of people know about him right now, you know, probably outside of here. So I saw some list of top transfers, and he was way, way down the list. And we sent it to him, and it's pretty exciting to know that there's a lot of people that don't know much about you, and you can go put your mark on the game.
Andrew, follow-up? Good follow-up. I was going to ask about Bamba. He was rocking the Texas Cowboy hat.
Yeah. He seems to be having a really good time. I mean, that's part of the reason that he chose Texas is he wanted to have a good college experience for the short time that he's in college. And so, you know, he enjoys going to those football games and being one of the students that's cheering for the team and, you know, going to the volleyball games. And, you know, he and I went to a soccer game a couple weeks ago. He just enjoys being part of it. And I think being one of the student athletes here, there's a sense of camaraderie that he enjoys being part of. I mean, if you think about a guy like Mo, everyone is always trying to put him over here as someone that's unique and different, and in a lot of ways he is. But, you know, sometimes he wants to be part of something too. And I think he's enjoyed that so far here.
Your first year here, you guys were pretty multiple in what you did offensively, even when Cam went down, in terms of certain guys getting the ball and using certain guys in certain ways. Is that the sense that could be the kind of offense with this group, because you do have you know, that true kind of inside-outside forward guy and the guards to play off the ball too?
The bigs are really versatile. This is as good a group of bigs as I've ever had the chance to work with. And that group that first year was really good. And obviously, Shaq was very good for, you know, relative to what he had done early in his career. And Jarrett was phenomenal last year. But overall, if you put them together, it's a good group. At the same time, it's a young group. Dylan's a junior. We have 3 freshmen. And James is a sophomore. So we've got to continue to gain experience and understanding Mo's got to get better with execution of some of the little details. I tried to explain to him sometimes those little details are what's going to get you the shot you want to go get or get a teammate a shot. The one thing that team had that you're referring to with Connor and some of those older guys is you could draw something up in a timeout and they would leave the timeout and go execute it really, really well. And as a coach, that's a great feeling because there's a lot of timeouts in our game. And there's a lot of situations where you want to maybe adjust something on the fly. I remember one time because of foul trouble, we had to put Connor at the 5, and he had never really played the 5. He'd always played the 4. And we called a counter to a play that we normally run, but we had never really run the counter, and Connor just got it. He just did it, and we scored. And just having guys that can think the game like that is really good. Dylan is that way, and we've got to help the other guys move in that direction.
Jim, go ahead, please.
You're in a place like Texas, you're recruiting some of the highest caliber guys in the country, guys like Mo. I'd like to get your thoughts on the federal investigation into college basketball. Second part of that is when news of that broke, some schools have asked their, gone to their coaches and said, hey, reassure us that we're not going to get swept up in this. Do you hear from the president's office or the athletic director or anything similar just to say, hey, just tell us everything here is on?
I'll answer the second question first. When the news of it came out, I talked to our compliance, director Lori Hammond. I talked to Mike Perrin, and basically there's constant communication there about our recruiting. How are we doing things with our recruiting? Are we following NCAA guidelines? So we have a regular dialogue with compliance about that, and our compliance staff is really, really good here, led by Lori. But obviously coming out of that, I think pretty much any school at this level, the administration wants to say, hey, give us a heads up on anything going on. How are you guys going about X, Y, and Z? Most of that stuff's already been talked about, and documentation is a huge part of what we do. So in answer to your second question, yes, there was quite a bit of communication about that, and there will continue to be, regardless of what happens nationally. To answer the first question, it's obviously not good for our sport, and there's a lot of really, really positive things about our game and about our sport that hopefully will continue to be highlighted and promoted about our game, and this is not one of them. This is a very, very unfortunate part of our game. I think that certainly the FBI investigation, brought to light some things that were going on, and I think the biggest thing that was a huge eye-opener for most people was the FBI involvement. I don't know that, things going on with recruiting and, third parties and some of the stuff that came out was a huge revelation. But the fact that the FBI was involved and, people are actually being arrested and charged with crimes, that was, something that, A, brought a ton of attention, negative attention to our sport, and then B, opens a lot of people's eyes.
I know most guys you recruit probably have dreams of playing in the NBA, but with a guy like Mo, it's pretty clear what he wants to do, is it easier to coach him that way when you kind of know that this is a one-year deal?
Well, yes, it is. I think the first thing you said was most guys you recruit have dreams of playing in the NBA. They all do. Not most, every single one of them. And one of the things that's unique about our sport, and it does speak to some of the challenges with our system, is every kid comes into college on a full scholarship, and with the same, they take a full class load and they eat in the same place, and so they're on pretty relatively level level playing field in terms of their experience, but they're not necessarily in the same place in terms of where their career is headed and the timetable and those sorts of things. So it is nice with a guy like Mo to know that, hey, if things go, well, and he continues to progress, he's going to be taking that next step after this year. And that was something we discussed in the recruiting process. I will say, relative to maybe last year, what we, the process we went through with Jarrett, we probably spent way too much time as a coaching staff thinking about, what's going to happen? Is he going to go? Is he going to? Because at the end of the day, that's not your decision. That's up to the young man. And there's a lot of people that want to prognosticate about what might happen. So, yes, in answer to your question, it is nice to know with Mo that's the plan.
To follow up on Jim's question, because you were in the mix for Bowen, has the FBI talked to you or your staff, and can you say that Texas will definitely not be implicated?
No, they've not talked to us. We followed everything, all the rules the right way in recruiting him. He came down on an official visit, and it's at a point in the year we stopped recruiting him. I'll leave it at that.
Bob, just real quick to follow up on Jarrett. Were you a little surprised he left? Because it felt like when we talked in March, you kind of felt like he was really enjoying it here, and it really was a strong possibility, maybe not one way or the other, but just there was a strong possibility he would come back.
No, I'm not surprised he left. I mean, maybe it was wishful thinking. And again, I got my friend here in the back, Coach Kuiper. For those of you guys that know him, he was really close with Jarrett. And, Coach would always say, man, Jarrett really likes it here. And, Jarrett's having a good time. But the NBA, that, as we said, I mean, that's these guys' dream. And I think the fact that Jarrett was able to take such a big jump, really between the time he got here in June to the November, December, when he played well but had some ups and downs, to the end of the season where he really was playing probably as well as any big kid in the country, that gave him a lot of confidence to say, hey, I made this jump from high school to college pretty well. I think I can go make the next jump. And, by all indications, and talking to guys in the front office of the Nets, and I've texted a couple times and communicated with Coach Kenny Atkinson, the head coach of the Nets. They really love him. He's doing a good job. He hit a 3 the other day in an exhibition game. We're like, well, where was that for us? But he did hit a 3 in an exhibition game here. So, but I'm just really happy for him and the progress he's making. I saw a video one of our guys sent to me that was on Twitter of him at some community service event where he was literally in the group of people dancing. And just to see Jarrett continue to evolve and grow and gain a comfort level around all different types of people is pretty neat.
Got time for 3 last ones. Go ahead, Jim, please. Okay, sorry to keep coming back to the non-basketball questions, but your guys are going to be in a little bit different situation than football, because your guys are typically on the court during the national anthem, which has become an issue. College campuses are typically places of protest. How do you expect that issue to come up with your team? How would you counsel them if somebody wanted to join in that protest? And has there been any kind of conversation with the president's office or even Chancellor McRaven, because he has put out some ideas of what he thinks should happen?
Yes. Well, last season, Chancellor McRaven came and spoke to our team about this very topic. And, I mean, for those of you guys that have heard him speak, he's pretty captivating. And he actually he got emotional, when he was talking to our guys. So it was just incredibly powerful. We do have conversations about these things. I mean, it's we will, leading up to our first game, communicate about our guys' feelings. We've already done that more individually or in small groups than we have as a team. I probably sound like a lot of other coaches when I say my hope is that whatever we do, that we support one another as a team. and that we're unified as a group because, you know, the national anthem is played right before we play. And we're getting ready to take the court to go try to win a game against another team that really wants to win the game too and also has good players. And so it's really important that we're connected. With that being said, I wholeheartedly support our guys. I believe in our guys. I think, you know, without getting into too much, this is, you know, certainly there's some challenging things going on in this country that no one on this campus is necessarily immune from or can completely ignore. Here's what I've told our guys, and I don't think this gets me in any trouble. So this is what I've told them, and I've communicated this to them several times, and I will continue to. Number one, you have meaning. You are meaningful as a person, and you're meaningful beyond the game that you play. Number two, your families have meaning. And number three, the communities that you come from have a lot of meaning. And unfortunately, that wasn't always the case. And that's a fact. That's a reality. But I want our guys to understand that they are more than just someone that dribbles a ball or shoots a ball. They are someone that has a voice, and this is a critical age to find that voice. So I support them, but I also know that as a team, we have a job to do, and that we represent more than just ourselves individually. We represent the University of Texas. We represent all of our fans, and that's very important to us. We take a lot of pride in that.
Two last ones, Brian, and then Dustin.
So two things. So to put a point on that, so it is fair to say that it's a little more complicated than you just saying you have a standing edict that everyone will stand for the anthem. It's just more complicated than that.
Well, I don't want to speak out of place because there are some people that have said that.
Right.
That's not my edict. Again, we represent a lot of people, but my number one job is to support our players and make sure that we're connected and unified in what we do. So, you know, we've in the past been able to come together around that, and I hope that we can continue to.
And then secondly, to put a final point on this recruiting issue, you know, I don't think what was announced was any surprise to those of us who follow it, but in some respects, are you guys as a coaching body, were you glad that this is now out there? It's like, hey, this has been going on forever. We've been saying this forever, and people have ignored it. And now that it's all out in the open, maybe it gets cleaned up or addressed.
You know, that's an interesting one, Brian, because I don't think there's any easy fix. And there's been a lot of talk lately about the model and whether or not it works, whether or not it's broken. I've read a lot about it. I've listened to a lot of people. I've not heard anyone that has all the answers. I don't have all the answers. I will say this. We operate under similar rules to every other sport that is under the umbrella of the NCAA. But our sport is so very different. And I think it would be naive of all of us to act like it's the same. And it's so very different well before these guys get to us. The thing about basketball that's, you know, I'm not an expert in any other sport, but that is so interesting is you can take the best 15-year-old player in the country and you can say, that guy's got a really good chance to be a $100 millionaire. And I just don't know if that's the case in other sports. Maybe it is. But because some of those guys are so easily identifiable, that opens up a whole other can of worms that certainly factors into some of the stuff that we're talking about. So, you know, were coaches happy that this came out? I don't think coaches are ever happy to see something bad happen to the sport or to individual people. I mean, we're talking about people with families. You know, would coaches love to see the playing field be leveled? Yes, but again, I've not heard anyone that has a quick, easy fix for that. And to truly come up with a solution, you have to be willing to look at all the factors that go into the quote-unquote problem.
Justin, last one, please.
I know it's just practice, but what's the three-point shooting been like thus far? Obviously, that's something that y'all can improve on from last year. And
yeah.
Secondly, what is this team capable of accomplishing this year? Is this a team that can compete, you know, to win the Big 12, or what's this team capable of?
You know, I'm excited to see that. The answer to your last question, is the team capable of winning the Big 12? We certainly have some guys that I feel like if we're connected around one cause and we have guys bought into roles, and if we stay healthy, which is a big one for us, then I think we can be a team that can play with anyone. But there are some ifs in there, and we've got a lot of maturing to do. We've got 5 freshmen that are freshmen, and the thing that's going to be exciting to watch is just how guys respond early in the year. And then, of course, no matter what happens, there needs to be a strong emphasis on growth. And I think when you look at what happened with Jarrett last year, how he progressed and developed, that needs to be a real model for all of our young guys, because a lot of his growth was due to his approach and his willingness to get outside of his comfort zone. So expectations, you know, we expect to take a very, very big jump this year. You know, we expect to be highly competitive in the Big 12. It's a great conference. It's as competitive as a conference as there is. In terms of three-point shooting in practice, the numbers have been pretty good. But you know what, looking back at tape from last year, and Coach Kuiper always tells me not to dwell on last year, but it's kind of as a coach what you do. You kind of watch tape. But we missed a lot of open threes. I mean, we missed a lot of, you know, I don't think he'd mind me saying it, Eric Davis stepping in the corner, wide open, good pass from his teammate. And, you know, this is a make or miss game. They always say that in the NBA. It's if you make that shot, you know, now all of a sudden the lead is this and the game is that. And the bottom line is we got to make more of those shots this year. I think we will. I think we have better engines offensively to create those shots, but we still got to go do it.
Thanks all. Appreciate your time.